Good day, students. Welcome to mathgotserved.com. In this clip, we're going to be taking a look at an example on how to solve quadratic equations by factoring the quadratic formula and graphing. The instructions for the example are as follows. We're to solve the given quadratic equation by factoring a quadratic formula and graphing. So the equation under consideration is 2x squared. Let's write that again. 2x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 4. Okay, so the first method that we're going to work on, method 1, is we're going to solve the quadratic equation by factoring. Okay, alright, so let's go ahead and outline the steps that will guide our problem solving process, and then we are going to apply those steps to the problem. Alright, so the steps are as follows. First of all, when you want to solve a quadratic by factoring, you write it in standard form. Okay, so write in standard form. What is the standard form of a quadratic equation? It's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So set it equal to 0 and order the terms in descending order of degree. Alright, the quadratic, linear, and then a constant term. After doing that, you factor the expression on the left. So factor the left side. We're going to be using the x game. There are different ways to factor, but we're going to be using the x game for this example. And then after you're done with your factorization process, you then set the factors to 0. And then you solve each equation. Alright, so that's basically that. Alright, so let's apply to this quadratic. 2x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 4. Alright, so first things first, we want to put it in standard form. Obviously, it's not in standard form because it is not equal to 0. So what we're going to do is fix that. This 4 should be moved to the left side, so we'll subtract 4 from both sides of the equation. Alright, when we do that, we're going to have, that's going to give us 2x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. Okay, now we're going to play the x game. Alright, so the x game will help us to write this as a quadratic with 4 terms that we can factor by grouping. So we need to find 2 numbers to replace the middle term 5x with to enable us to accomplish that goal. Alright, so let's make our nice little x. And then we're going to put a t-chart on the side. Okay, so we're going to put AC on the top and B goes on the bottom. So we have A, B, C. AC is 4 and B is 5. Alright, so we think of 2 numbers that multiply to give you 4 and add or subtract to give you 5, right? So let's list the multiples of 4. 1 times 4 and then 2 times 2. Alright, which combination gives you 5 is the first pair, right? 1 and 4. So 1 times 4 gives us 4, and then 1 plus 4 is 5. Good. So that's what we need. So we're going to put it in the center. So now we're going to have 2x squared plus 1x plus 4x plus 2 equals 0. Okay, and then we'll break it down the center. And now we're going to start factoring by grouping. Alright, put a partition right here. Okay, so we're going to pull out the GCF from the first pair and the second pair to the left and right of the partition. So to the left of the partition, to help us pull out the GCF, let's break down the terms. So this is going to become 2 times x plus 1 times x, and then plus 2 times x plus 2 times 1 equals 0. On the left side of the partition for these first two terms, the common factor is x. Okay, that's common to both sides, so we're going to factor that out or divide it out. When we divide it out, this is to go away. So you're left with 2x plus 1. Okay? And then on the right side of the partition, we can see what the common factor is. 2 and 2 are common, so we factor those out. Always bring down the middle sign. So this is a plus in this case, so there's no need to switch any signs. So bring down the plus, the 2 that we factored out, and we're left with 2x plus 1. Because when you factor out, it's as though you're dividing out, right? So these twos get divided out, and that's equal to 0. All right, so let's pause and check. This is looking good because the quantities in the parentheses are identical. So we're going to factor out these two identical quantities, 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 1. Factor it out to 2x plus 1. And then what's left on the outside, x plus 2 will be grouped together in its own nice little parenthesis. So set that equal to 0. All right, so let's continue our work on the upper right here. So we have 2x plus 1 times x plus 2 equals 0. So we're not going to use the zero product property, okay? So to do that, we're just going to set both factors to 0 as specified in step 3. When you set both factors to 0, you then solve each one as indicated in step 4. All right, so the first one, we subtract 1 from both sides. Okay, that yields 2x equals negative 1. And then divide both sides by 2. And then we have x equals negative 1/2. All right, and then x plus 2, we're going to go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides, and that will result in the solved state, x equals negative 2. Okay, so for this problem, the solutions are x equals negative 1/2 and x equals negative 2. Okay. All right, so now we're going to solve the same problem using the quadratic formula. All right, so before we start that one, we're going to go ahead and outline the steps, just like we did for method 1. So what are the steps for solving quadratics using the quadratic formula? Let's write down the title first. So this is method number 2. Method 2 is the quadratic formula. All right, so steps coming up. So what you're going to do first for solving quadratics using the quadratic formula, it's similar to the steps for factoring. So the first thing that you do is you write in standard form. You write the equation, write in standard form. What is that? Standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. After you do that, you find a, b, and c. Okay. So that's the beauty of writing it in standard form, so you can accurately determine what a, b, and c are. After doing that, you are then going to write down your formula. It's always good to write it down before you use it, so avoid making mistakes. So you write the quadratic formula. After you write down the quadratic formula, you're then going to plug in or substitute, plug in, and simplify. Going to simplify using PEMDAS. Okay? All right, let's do it. So we're dealing with the same quadratic, which is 2x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 4. So to put it in standard form, like we did before, we'll subtract 4 from both sides of the equation. Okay, so we'll subtract 4 from both sides. It's going to yield 2x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0, like we had before. Now we can determine what a, b, and c are. So a is 2, b is 5, and c is 2. All right, extracted from the standard form, coefficients of x squared, x, and the constant term. All right, step number 3 says you write down the quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and write it down. The quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Okay, all that divided by 2a. Bam, bam. Now we're going to go ahead and substitute. So we have x equals negative b is going to be negative 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So 5 squared minus 4ac, 4 times 2 times 2. Okay. And then all that will be divided by 2a. So all over 2a. So 2a is 2 times 2, because a is 2. Let's simplify that. So we have negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 2 times 2 times 4 is 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay. And then this over 2a. 2 times 2 is 4. And then we keep simplifying. So notice if you're using the order of operations, whatever is parentheses, you simplify first, right? So this radicand is a grouped operation. Think about it that way. So we'll have to simplify that completely and then do the square root of it, because square root is a power, is an exponent, is a fractional exponent. So we also have to resolve that first before adding and subtracting and dividing. Okay, so negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 16 is 9. That divided by 4. All right, simplify further. We get negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 9 is 3 over 4. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and split the equation. All right, we're going to split it along the lines of positive and negative. Let's rewrite the expression. So the expression that we have is x equals negative 5 plus or minus 3 over 4. So we're going to have a split here. Okay, so you see this plus or minus, that's where we're splitting along. So we have the minus part and then the positive part. So for the minus, we have x equals negative 5 minus 3 over 4. And then for the positive, we have x equals negative 5 plus 3 over 4. Okay, let's simplify both. So this one, the numerator has a grouped operation, so we take care of that first. Minus 5 minus 3, negative 8 over 4. That is equal to negative 2. And then the second one, minus 5 plus 3. Subtract, keep the sign of the bigger, negative 2 over 4. To simplify that, you divide top and bottom by 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2. And that will give us the reduced state, x equals negative 1 over 2. All right, so our solutions are the above. Solutions are x equals negative 2 and negative x equals negative 1/2. Now, if you compare this answer with what we got when we did it by factoring, we'll notice that both of them are identical. So that gives us confidence that our answer is in fact correct. Okay? If you get something else, then that means either one or both of your problems, solutions have errors in them, and you just have to go back and fix it. Now one more method, which is the graphing method. All right, so let's take a look at the steps for method number 3. We're gonna use the computer to accomplish this solution. You can also use a graphing calculator. So for method 3, this is graphing. We're going to be using Desmos for this, okay? Or you can also, yeah, so there you have it. Now, what are the steps that we're going to use to solve this equation, the quadratic equation, by graphing, namely using the Desmos computer software? The steps are as follows. What you do first is, just like the other ones, you write in standard form, right? In standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. And then step 2, you set the left side to y. So basically you have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is the related function of your quadratic equation in standard form. Okay, and then now you can enter it into Desmos. You enter it into Desmos or your graphing calculator, enter into a grapher, a graphing utility, whatever you're using. And then whatever the options are in the graphing utility software, you find the x-intercepts. The x-intercepts are your solutions. Okay, so let's do it. So the original problem that we had for this problem is 2x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 4. So we're going to put it in standard form like we did for the other two. So to do that, we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. So it's equal to 0. So when we do that, we're going to get 2x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. Now, we're going to set equal to y, so we're going to have y equals 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. So this is what we're going to graph. This is what we're going to put into our graphing utility program. All right, so we just go straight to desmos.com. Just enter that in your address bar. Click on graphing calculator. All right, and then like we specified earlier, just enter the equation in function form into the graphing field. So you have y equals 2x, and then shift 6 is an arrow to give you access to the exponential field. So 2x to the second power. All right, use the directional button to escape the exponential position, write to regular script, and then plus 5x plus 2. You notice as you're entering the values, it's changing. All right, so what we're looking for basically here in the graph are the intercepts, the x-intercepts, the points where the graph intersects the x-axis. So this is one of them, -2, 0, and -5, 0. So the x-intercepts are basically -2 and -1/2 when you write 0.5, -0.5 as a fraction. All right, so let's just make a rough sketch of the graph that we just generated using Desmos. We remember what the x-intercepts were. So the graph looked basically something like this. You had the x, so let's say this is 0, -1/2, and this is -1, -1.5, and this is -2. These 2 points were the x-intercepts. negative 2, and negative 1/2. Okay, so the vertex is going to be somewhere in the middle right there. Let's draw the graph. This is just a rough sketch, okay, nothing too crazy. So you sketch the graph. So what you just have to note here is that the x-intercepts are your solutions. Okay, so here is negative 1/2. So our x-intercepts are x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 1/2. So in the last step, those are our solutions. So our solutions are the x-intercepts. Our solutions are going to be x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 1/2. So that's basically how you solve a quadratic function by graphing. You just need to find what the x-intercepts are after you enter the function into the graphing field. All right, so that's that. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, tons of support resources can be found at mathgotserved.com or the links in the description below. If you have any questions about what we went over or have any special requests, just specify it in the comment section and we'll be more than glad to assist you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.